So tell me a little bit about yourself, Bob.
Well, I was born in Newark, New Jersey. Only child. I was adopted. I started drinking alcohol when I was 11 years old. The family I came from was very quiet. There was hardly any communication between me and my mother and father, conversation. There was no I love yous said in the house. I never heard those words, I love you. There were no hugs and no kisses. There were no good mornings, how are you, how did you sleep? So when I was 11 years old, I found that when I drank 2 bottles of cheap wine, I could talk to people. I couldn't talk to people without the wine. I was so fucked up emotionally. And I became addicted to the effect that alcohol had on me, and it seemed to bring me to life. Whereas without the alcohol, I was like a dead person, like a zombie. I didn't know how to party or interact with people or socialize.
And then what happened when you became a young adult?
More of the same. Then I started being introduced to the nightlife scene, the bars, the clubs, more sex, and picking up a different girl every night. When I was in my early 20s, I got into engineering. I started out as a clerk and worked my way up to be a project cost engineer. I had a new Cadillac, and then I got engaged. But after we were engaged for about a year, my girlfriend says, if we get married, she says, I want you to do 2 things. I said, what is that, Esther? She says, well, we have to stop going out dancing, and we have to somehow get you off the alcohol. There'll be no drinking in our relationship. And I said, well, how the hell am I going to do that? Because that's all I knew. That's all I enjoyed doing was drinking, especially with her, because I could talk to her and I could be intimate with the alcohol in me. Without the alcohol in me, I had nothing to say and I couldn't be intimate.
How did that work out?
We broke up.
Yeah.
And then
I'm sorry.
I found myself in San Francisco on Skid Row about a year or 2 later with 5 cents in my pocket, and I lived in the Mission. And I sold blood for $5 a pint to get a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of wine. And then I got another job in the engineering field and got out of the Mission and worked for Standard Oil of California as an associate cost engineer, and met a girl by the name of Barbara. She was an artist, and we shared a house together. And we used to hang around with people like Ravi Shankar, the sitarist, whose daughter is Nora Jones, the singer. And we used to party in North Beach, San Francisco.
Sound like they were good times.
They were good times.
But what happened?
I had my first nervous breakdown in '69. At the beginning of '69, I had a nervous breakdown, and at the end of '69, I had another nervous breakdown. And while I was in the hospital the second time, the psychiatrist who was on the ward at the Veterans Hospital said, Bob, what would you really like to do with your life? And I said, Doctor, all I really want to do is drink, shoot dope, and have a little sex occasionally. And that's kind of where my head was at back in those days. And when I got discharged from the hospital, I got on welfare. Welfare was paying me $99 a month to live on. And then I got an unemployment check for about $275. So with the 2 checks, I got a hotel room for $60 and bought some heroin, and I started dealing heroin. And also, besides dealing heroin, we used to go to Safeways, me and my friend Billy. I had a little Volkswagen that I bought, and we used to go around to all the Safeways in the Bay Area and steal steaks. and at night we sell them in bars at half price. So in other words, if the steak costs $10 in Safeway, we sell them for $5 in the bars. And that's how we financed our addiction problems.
So the bars were buying steaks from guys in a Volkswagen?
Yeah.
I don't know if the Food and Drug Administration would let that happen today. Wow. So you financed the whole drug habit with steaks?
Yeah.
From Safeway?
Plus dealing drugs, selling drugs. This is all illegal, but I think the statute of limitations is left by now. This was in like 1970.
Yeah. So tell me about your life now.
My life now, well, I have a daughter, and she was born in 1964, and I love her very much. And my dream in 1970, 71, 72 was to somehow manage to get out of Skid Row and spend time with my daughter and live in Washington. But and I kept on relapsing, going back and forth to alcohol for 13 years. I couldn't stay sober. I get sober for 6 months, then maybe 9 months, one time a year, then 3 months, and I'd always go back to it because that's all I knew was drinking. And I couldn't see, I couldn't figure out what to do with myself as a sober person because it was foreign to me. It was like being an alien in this world and walking around with a cup of coffee. It was just so foreign to me to live like that. So I came to Washington, D.C. in 1972, and I saw my daughter for the first time, and she was 7 years old then, and I was still drinking. And then I stayed for about 6 months and went back to California. And then about a year later, I come back here again. And I came back and forth for about 4 years. And then when she was 12 years old, I came back here for good. And we lived on 16th Street. And she was having problems with her mother. Her mother one day put a telephone cord around her neck and put a pistol to her head because of her bad behavior. Was going to blow her brains out. So I went to court, D.C. Superior Court, and got custody of her, and we had a little place over on 16th and Cochran, a little efficiency. And I'm manic depressive, you know, so this gets into the picture. We were happy for about a year. We both were working, and she was going to school, and then after about a year of living together, I had a nervous breakdown. I had another nervous breakdown and wound up in St. Elizabeth's over there in Southeast. And my daughter was put in a home for girls, wayward girls.
How old was she then?
She was about 12. And in a way, my manic depression actually fucked up her life too. Because it seems like all the people I ever loved in my life, I've somehow hurt because of my drinking, my drug abuse, and my manic depression. All the people I've loved, I've just ruined the relationships with them. But the good news is today, after over 20 nervous breakdowns now, 12 years of heroin addiction, 30 years of alcoholism, methamphetamines for about 5 years, marijuana for about 10 years, and popping pills, barbiturates during the 60s, and mescaline and LSD. I'm off everything, and I'm on medication for bipolar with a doctor at the Veterans Hospital. I take lithium, Depakote, risperidol, and Klonopin, and another antidepressant, Zoloft, because I suffer from depression too. That's why they call it manic depression. Sometimes you have the mania, and sometimes you have the depression. It goes in cycles. With me, I get manic about every year and a half, especially during the winter. And the other times I'm out of the hospital, I get depressed. So I'm just getting over a depressed period because I wasn't on any antidepressant medication, because a lot of doctors in the medical field of psychiatry think that antidepressants can trigger up a manic episode. So it's a catch-22 situation. If I take the antidepressants, I get a manic episode. If I don't take the antidepressants, I'm depressed as hell. So this time they're keeping my dose very low and monitoring me, seeing me every 2 weeks and drawing blood to see that everything's okay. And so far so good. And now I share a house with my daughter. My daughter has her own house. She has 3 children. My oldest granddaughter is 30. She's a police officer. And my youngest granddaughter is a senior in high school. She'll be going to college next year. And my grandson is about 10, and he's doing well in the 3rd grade. And I live in the basement. I have a basement apartment in the house. I have my own quarters, so I can come and go as I please, and I have a lot of freedom. And I devote a lot of time to my recovery. I've been sober almost 25 years, and I can help people that are sober like 6 months or a year. And a lot of them will say, Bob, what the hell do you do? What do we do now? They don't know what to do because they're so used to drinking to kill the time. Go out for coffee with someone and talk to them. It's as simple as that.
How do you feel today?
I feel relatively okay as a sober person. I'm relatively comfortable as a sober person.
You're not selling steaks anymore.
Not selling steaks anymore. When I was 22, 23, 24, I couldn't carry on a conversation with you like this without drinking damn near a fifth of scotch because of my emotional problems. I couldn't do it with a cup of coffee like I can today. I can go over here and get a cup of coffee, buy you a cup of coffee, and sit down and carry on a conversation just like we're talking now. But it takes time, and a lot of alcoholics don't want to wait. It takes time. It's a process. Recovery is a process. It takes time. A lot of people, they want what they want when they want it. They want it right now. They want 15 years of recovery in like a month, and it doesn't work that way. You got to be patient.